Ambiguous grief you've talked about, and anticipatory grief, I think. But yeah, could you maybe elaborate more on that?
Sure, yeah. So I think with all this ambiguity around the pandemic and lots of ambiguous feelings, right? Like when I ask people, how have you been? It's a lot of up and down.
Right.
They're saying that less now because I think they're getting out more and, things are shifting. But through the first wave and a bit through the second wave, a lot of, up and down, up and down. And I think the up and down is ambiguity. Like it's not, I'm nowhere, but I'm everywhere. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
And to be very clear, grief is a response to loss.
Yeah.
But what have people lost? So
Their
some people have
lifestyle.
lost actual humans in their
Or
life.
their income, or their job, or
Exactly. So I think
Yep.
some people are losing life, but other people are thinking about the possibility of losing life, which is losing the guarantee of safety. And like you said, the losing income, losing employment, losing connection, and normalcy, what you can expect. So I think the grief we experience and our response to loss is kind of everywhere because we might not be experiencing it as much now, but there was a period of such prolonged uncertainty before where, we were like, okay, do we think like it'll be better by Pride? Do we think it'll be better by Christmas? Do we think it'll be better by Easter?
Right.
And the answer was no.
That's how I felt through the entire Trump presidency. I feel like I have to grieve the loss of that time. That time that's just like, Anyway.
Yeah. when you could have been going in a different direction.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Sure. And people in my community feeling better or feeling differently about their lives or themselves. Yeah, for sure. or maybe this pandemic we wouldn't be dealing with it a year later if like things had been handled a little differently at the start of this whole thing. So, I can grieve the loss of like all the things in my life I've had to deal with this last year in terms of that, God.
I mean, I have to say Canada wasn't perfect, but America.
Yeah,
Jesus fucking Christ.
Just dropped the bowling ball right on our foot.
It was painful. It
was painful. It was painful.
Getting things
and so there's also that grief of like our people, our societal people. Like we saw the divider, the people who were really self-centered and the people who were thinking about community, right?
Yes.
And anticipatory grief is like just really coming to terms with the next bad thing that's going to happen, the next thing that's going to be canceled, the next thing that's never going to be there.
It sounds like a Buddhist detachment.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like taking a detached place from things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think for anyone who's been stuck at home, just kind of on their own, they're in a fog. And sometimes that fog, they don't have a name for it, but I would say that it's grief and it's ambiguous. And sometimes if you're looking ahead a little bit, it becomes anticipatory. So that's what I mean by those terms. And I think the pandemic, the conditions of the pandemic really activated that.
Right.
So thanks for asking about that. I know I kind of forced you to ask me about those things, but I
we
really wanted to talk about those concepts.
These are awesome concepts that I'm really happy that somebody has put some thought into try to putting them to words and calling them a thing. I think it's important, and I'm really I love this conversation right now. It's great.
Thanks, yo.
When I lost a baby, I remember someone telling me something about grief, and it was like, she's like, it's basically like a hole that you're trying to grasp the edge of, but the edges they're like they keep kind of disappearing, and so you're trying. It's like there's a hole, and you can't even find the edge. And I think about that a lot with grief. It's just like we've all just been sort of. It's like you're grasping at air, and I think that's what it feels like, when you're going through it.
And grasp, that's a very good analogy because when you're grasping, it's usually to stabilize, right?
Yeah,
if
you're
I'm treading water and I grab on the edge, it's because I want to stabilize.
Right.
And to think that there's no stability or you're not sure what's going to bring you stability, it's painful. Especially as adults when we're like, I should be able to regulate myself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can't. I don't know how to. I feel like I'm in a dark hole.